Where is Kemet?
Well, Kemet is the ancient name of Egypt. It's what the Egyptians call Egypt.
But the entire Egypt, the delta around the Nile, it's so confusing.
I know it's confusing for me too. I think it's just a word they use for Egypt. But it could also be. I mean, for example, we know that these names meant different things at different times.
Yes.
They use the name. Kush, for example. For a while, it only meant this kingdom just above the Third Cataract.
Okay.
But in the Second Intermediate period, Kush extended all the way to Aswan.
Correct.
Or maybe even further.
Yes.
So then suddenly all of Nubia became Kush.
Correct.
These names had different meanings at different times. I mean, it's like
we had a huge debate about the term Kemet itself.
Yeah.
Because some people believe that Kemet is just part of the delta, and some people believe Kemet is just around the Nile, the black land or the black soil around the Nile, and goes all the way to Jebel Barkal and beyond. So Kemet is not only associated with ancient Egypt as well. The relationship between the Kushites and the ancient Egyptians is a little bit complicated. And especially during the 18th dynasty. So even when one of Bianchi's stela or inscriptions, he's talking, he's the lord or the king of the two lands as well as the lord of Kemet. Like he specified Kemet by itself.
That's right. It's a sandstone stela. Well, I think when he says Kemet, I think he's talking about Egypt specifically, because he says Amen of Karnak has given me the kingship of Kemet, I think. So here we go. Cool.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Professor.
But I'd have to look it up.
I'm telling you, this is a big debate because we have a lot of researchers in Sudan right now. They're very interested in history.
Here, mixed with.
Thank you.
But I think there's no one answer. I mean, I think that there's nothing. It's probably a fluid term.
Fluid term.
Fluid. You know. And maybe it designated a political idea
more than
geographic.
Maybe. So it's still open for more researches, right? It's not definite that Kemet is an ancient name for Egypt. It could be fluid, like he said. It could be extended to.
Sometimes I think that the Kushites extended it. When they came to power, I think they extended it all the way into Sudan. Maybe
all Kemet, all as one Kemet.
Yeah.
That's why you're right. It's not a geographical term. It could be more fluid.
Yeah.
The people define the people.
Well, it's like when we say king of Upper and Lower Egypt. In earlier pharaonic times, Upper Egypt probably included part of Lower Nubia, and Lower Egypt was the Delta.
Correct.
But in Kushite times, Upper Egypt extended all the way to Kush. So and it extended all that far because of the pinnacle on Jebel Barkal, which showed a king wearing
the white crown.
The white crown.
Yes.
Yeah. So when the kings declared themselves kings of Upper and Lower Egypt, I mean it's often understood to mean Egypt and Kush in Egypt.
What a question. What happened to the mummy of the heart?
Well, there were some bones found.
Why? Let me ask you one more question. Why do you always find bones, not mummies?
Well, because first of all, if the mummy was. First, we know that his coffin or coffins, I think there were 2 or 3. We know that they were made of wood. The wood was covered with inlaced stones because many of the inlays survived. They're now in Boston. We also know that the coffins were covered with gold. But if you put if you put wood, and we have the inlay eyes from the coffins also. If you put the mummies in the niche where the water comes,
Yes.
they're going to decompose. It's going to just rot, and everything is going to fall apart.
So that's what you believe happened to it?
Yeah.
And how, like one piece of bone or many bones or skull in a skull
Well, not skull, just some fragments of
of her arm.
yeah. I think
That's all
that's
that was
all
left.
that's all that they found. When they don't forget though that when they excavated the tomb, it was full of water and mud.
Yes.
So they had to by hand they had to bail it out.
So believe there's some left.
Maybe, yeah,
Maybe.
but I mean they didn't have any electric pump,
Yeah.
so they had to bail everything by hand, and so
Whatever they got.
They had men, scooping the water and passing it up the stairway.
Yeah. So it would be a very good project to re-excavate that pyramid, right?
Well, someday it would be, yeah. I think they were definitely more African. They were Sudanese. They were like Sudanese. They were Sudanese. Today.
But are
Modern
they like
Sudanese.
modern Sudanese today? Like if you go to Jebel Barka and the people live around the Jebel Barka, do you think they are like, oh, that's how the ancient Kushite looked like?
Well, I think even if you go to Karima and look at the people in the village, they're all different types.
Correct.
Ethnicity.
Racially, are they different?
Racially, Egyptians and
Ancient Egyptians and Kushites,
well, I mean, it's like today.
diverse.
It's like today. I mean, how would you distinguish Sudanese from Nubians and Egyptians?
From Egyptians right now nowadays in Aswan, they look exactly like Sudanese.
There you go.
But the people in the Delta, they don't look like the South people of Egypt.
That's right.
It's exactly the same as it was thousands of years ago.
So they're all mixed. I mean, the farther north you go, the
Yes.
lighter skinned people are. The farther south you go, the darker.
But the ancient Egyptian and Eurocentrics, they try to depict all the Kushites as Negroid and completely racially different than the ancient Egyptians. What do you think about that? They call it, okay, this is the black pharaohs,
Yeah,
and
no,
like there is white pharaohs.
you have to be careful that you don't get involved you don't turn this into modern political racism. Because this we have to separate ourselves from our biases.
Correct.
Totally separate. We have to understand what the ancient people saw in themselves.
Correct.
We have to be careful that we don't interpret our
View from nowadays,
feelings
yes.
into ancient times.
Right.
Go backwards.
But I'm talking also like Professor about the bust. The bust of the Harka, the bust of the Shabaka, the Shitaka.
Yeah, I think
the statues, they look regular like any other Kimite king.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, some of them do, some of them don't. I mean, if you look at, I would think that the Ramessides they're from the Delta, so they're more like modern Egyptians from the Delta.
Yes.
There's then there were the Thebans, the Saidis.
Yes.
And if you look at Amenhotep III and Queen T and some of these, you can see people in Thebes today that look like these people.
Correct.
The Kushites. You can see in Middle Kingdom, you can see faces of pharaohs that look very, African. They look very southern.
Yes.
But is that the fact is that if you take away skin color, there are certain physical features that you identify with African, thicker lips, and,
big jaw.
But it's very difficult to, I think everybody wants to, or the people who are arguing most vociferously about this are basically saying, I want them to be us.
Like the southern Egyptians, for example. Let's talk about the without specifying a king or a dynasty. Do they look at the Kushites racially, distinguish themselves from them? from your own perspective, do you think the ancient Egyptian in any kind of dynasty, southern dynasty, they looked at the Kushite as part of them, or they look at the Kushite and they're like, oh, that's different than us?
Well, I think today they look at them as different, but I mean, I think in ancient times there was a huge political faction that looked at the Kushites as their defenders. Even though they were Egyptians, they were maybe the Theban population looked at the Kushites maybe like Americans looked at Obama. You know, he's one of us. He's a good ruler or a bad ruler or whatever. But we didn't see an African man. Some of us, I mean, most of us, I hope, didn't see an African man. We saw a racially we saw an American.
So they looked at him as part of their nation.
Well, but the Kushites were completely Egyptianized in the and maybe that's the wrong term. They were total believers in the cult of Amun.
Correct. And I would like to ask you a question, but later on about this as well.
And the cult of Amun was shared by Egypt and Kush. It wasn't an Egyptian religion exactly. It was a religion shared by Egypt and Kush. Amun was the state god of both Egypt and Kush. And
who started worshiping? Who started worshiping him?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question, because we probably ought to. Don't you think we ought to eat?
Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead and take your time. And this is just lunch.
What time do we have?